Hello? Yes.
Maybe a little higher.
Okay, I can be really loud.
All right, we'll be starting in a few minutes. We want to give people time to arrive. I sometimes call it the HKUST 5 minutes. But the truth is, I think most universities run that same way. Anyway, so just sit back and relax. The reason the room is so cold is because the humidity is high. And so the air conditioning system needs to bring the temperature down to make it drier so the books don't grow mold. Which is in the physical world, that's because information can be embodied and disembodied. And yeah, oh, I'm Victoria, by the way. I'm going to be your moderator. Okay, so some more people are coming. All right. Oh, and while we're waiting to start, I also just want to make a, just to remind you that this talk is being recorded and photos will be taken during the talk. You see my colleague Gin. And by attending and participating in this event, you're giving your consent to be photographed and video recorded. And you're waiving any and all claims regarding the use of your image by the university. So, oh no. But then, I mean, nothing to stop you from like covering your face or whatever, so that you're less likely to be using. Okay, let me just count heads, because we had about, we had over 30 people signed up. So I'm gonna, we still have a little bit of time I'd like to just wait 1 or 2 more minutes before I do my intro. So thank you for your patience. Okay, I see some people coming up. I'll wait until maybe 12:02. Okay, but while we're waiting, I'd like to point out a couple of things. So Unicode is really a very cool thing, and for the poster design, my colleague Dorian over there, she put down a Happy New Year message to us all in Unicode, and then this is the binary, the zeros and the ones are also expressing that as well. And that's, since I'm not a computer scientist, that coolness of how zeros and ones can become characters, it really excites me. Okay, it's 12:02, I think I will begin. Okay, so welcome to the talk. You know you're in the right place. I'm really pleased to be able to moderate this because UST Library has been involved in CJK systems for many years. In 1991, our library catalog was the first one in Hong Kong with full Chinese language capabilities. In '98, we hosted a really big seminar on Chinese information processing in libraries, and that's when I first became more aware and learned more about a lot of the exciting technical and difficult issues facing CJK, Chinese, Japanese, Korean characters, or Hanzi. So before Unicode, most of you are very young. You don't know what life was like before Unicode. As a librarian, one of the hardest things was somebody would be having difficulty reading something in Chinese. We'd say, well, what encoding have you set your browser to? And does it match the database you're trying to use? Again, you look flabbergasted. How could such a thing be? So there was Big 5, there was GB. So I was really so glad when Unicode emerged and made our lives better. But like many things that make our lives better, it's kind of invisible, and I'm really excited that Dr. Liu will be here to tell us more about it. So she is a leading expert in open systems in CJK. She initiated the iHanza open system architecture to support multiple locales. I won't go into all those details. She spearheaded the development of Hong Kong's first standard Chinese character set, the Hong Kong Supplementary Character Set, and she's played a leading role in pushing Hong Kong to migrate to the Unicode platform. She's retired from Hong Kong PolyU, where she was a computer science professor, and she continues to be very active in CJK standardization work. Since 2004, she has served as a convener of the ISO, IEC, JTC1, SC2, WG2, IRG group for the encoding of CJK unified ideographs. She has a Medal of Honor from the Hong Kong government, which she received in 2012, and in 2015 she received the Bulldog Award from Unicode for her contributions. So she also received her BS in electrical engineering from Beijing Normal University, and her Master of Science and her PhD from the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, which is also one of my alma maters, so she's my tongxue. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Liu. And let me switch things so that you can get to your PowerPoint.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. This is Happy Chinese New Year to everyone. I'm happy to be probably the first speaker after the Chinese New Year. So, right?
Right. Okay, let's go to here. Okay. And here you go. All right, I'm leaving it to an expert professor.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So everybody knows the title. This is about the Chinese character. Sometimes we call it Han characters, like in Hanzi. And you also hear the name CJK because under the standardization, these Han characters come from China, Korea, actually from Vietnam, from Japan, where the language system uses these characters, even though they may be a little bit different. So I should be pointing to this for change.
Okay, it should. Let me make sure it's turned on. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, now it should. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I have three parts today. Firstly, I give you an introduction on what is encoding. What does encoding do? Why do we need to do that? Then I explain about the CJK characters. And also, what are the limitations of CJK encoding methods and some of the new technologies we use to facilitate the standardization and the use of Han characters. Now, if I have animation, how come it all, so let me see. Yeah, how come it all went away? Okay, never mind. I had the animation. Somehow, when it's transferred over here, it's gone.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, well, look at it from the first one. This is a binary code, 01000001, okay? Well, this bothers me. Anyway, the question is, what does this the sequence mean? When you have it in the computer system, if you don't tell me what is the definition of the sequence, you cannot answer that question. Because as a number, and I put it in there, it's 2 to the power of 6, because it's 1, 0, 0 with the 6 zeros, plus 1, right? So it's just a binary number translate into a decimal number of 65. Or, if some of you are old enough to know ASCII code, this is actually the letter A. The same code as letter A. Now, what this means is, if you want to know what a binary sequence means, you need to know its definition before you can answer that. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So now here I give you a definition. 0, 0 means letter A, 0, 1 means letter B, and etc., etc. If that's the case, then it's not 65 anymore. This sequence is not letter A anymore, but it's actually this sequence, BAAB. Now, we don't have, in this particular sequence, you don't have C and B, C and D. Now, if I ask you, I want the computer system to represent not only a sequence, but also D, E, F, G. How do you answer that question with this one, with this definition? Undefined. Okay, you can't represent it because the system only defined 4 characters. So what it means is if I want to define, I want to use these symbols, I need to make sure they're defined. So let me give you a new, for some reason this, okay.
Would you like us to see if we can hook up your laptop instead?
Okay. Can I use my computer? Okay, hold on.
Oh, it works.
Okay, good. So,
Okay, is this what you wanted to do?
yeah. So let's go back. Okay. All right. So in order to define, now remember, I give you a second definition. And this one is problematic, but let's just do it this way, okay? So letter A is a 0, 1 is a B, C is a 0, 1, 1, 0, etc., etc. Okay, don't challenge me on why am I doing this, because I want to make sure every character is being defined. So if I have this one, now, okay, if I have the sequence, what does the sequence mean? Now you're in trouble, right? So let's just do it from left to right, because 0 is a A, then I have a 1, so that's a B, and 0 is AA, so I continue. So that is an interpretation, right, of that sequence.
Let's see if this
Okay.
works now. There we go.
Now, you can also see 0, 1 is also the letter C. So I can start with CA, etc., etc., all right? So that's only second interpretation. In fact, oh, okay. In fact, you can also have this sequence. You can actually have more sequences. So what is the problem with this definition? It's not unique. You can interpret it in different ways. And that's something computer system cannot handle. They can't make a decision. Should I interpret it as A or interpret it as C? They don't know. There is no rule for them to say, okay, should I always use the first one? If you use the first one, in fact, many cases, your C will disappear, even if you want to represent C. In certain sequences of binary code, you will not be able to do it. The reason is there is what we call it ambiguity. Computer science hates ambiguity. We want deterministic in everything we do, okay? So, compared to the previous definition, and you see a problem, this is a variable length encoding because it has a different length. And the previous one is fixed. If it is fixed, easy. Computer always read 2, 2, 2, 2. Then we solve the problem because there's no, it's deterministic. And if it's a variable length, you have to decide the length first before you decode that sequence. So what makes you think that you can detect it? This method obviously is not good. So this comes to the concept of encoding methods. You need to make sure that your encoding methods does not run you into ambiguity. Okay? So let's just get back to coding of characters. Now, firstly, if you, as we said, you have to define the character before you give it a sequence of code. So the concept is called character set. It's just a collection of different symbols. like English, the keyboard we have, all the symbols you have is on the keyboard, right? So ABC, lowercase, uppercase, they have different meanings, and so in English we call it the ASCII collection, right? If there are existing character sets, you call them a named set. And for example, a dictionary, Kanshi dictionary. This is a Japanese Daikanwa dictionary. And so, again, in a dictionary, one character can appear in many different places. But as a character collection, we're only talking about the unique characters. I don't care how many times you appear in a dictionary, but I only care this character is in there or not in there. So this is a mathematical concept of a set. So if you are in science and you know that the abstract definition of a set, everything is unique. Now for characters, encoding of characters can be done differently. Think about English. We can encode every word in a single code. That would be very complex because word has different format. And that's why they actually only encode the basic symbols in the English alphabet, A to Z, and some comma, and some period, all these punctuation marks, etc., etc. Now, English alphabet or the English language have a finite set of symbols. So we call it a closed set. You don't have a new symbol for writing English, okay? Now, for Chinese, the issue is, when you say Chinese, you only have an abstract collection. Everybody has a different collection. Because you use maybe 5,000 characters, I use 4,000 characters. So everyone has something different. However, not only because everyone has a different set, the Chinese character, as a character, you always create new ones. And I mean, in the early last century, people start to say, well, don't create new characters. Instead, use words, right? Combination of characters. So that's one way of reducing the openness of the character. Still, new characters are being created. So in principle, Chinese character set is an open set. Why do I explain this? Because if it is open, and we have to code every character, then you have to continually coding it. English, you don't. You have the keyboard. That's it. Okay? So that's where the problem may come in. So one limitation in the computer system is that they can only deal with finite set. So you define it. If you don't have a new character being defined in the system, you can't use it, basically. Okay? So this work is what we are trying to code. So another concept is, this is where the encoding comes in. When you have a collection, okay, you say, I want to use this collection of characters or symbols, because Chinese characters as a symbol set also includes punctuation marks, or mathematical, the Arabic numbers, etc., etc. So as a collection, we have to assign every symbol a code. If you have that assignment as a collection, it's called a coded character set. So every one you use in the computer system now is a coded character set. I mean, it's a character in a coded character set. Okay? If you don't have it, can't use it. And that's why sometimes we have trouble finding a character. Sometimes you don't know whether it's because the system doesn't have the font or the character is not even defined, right? So that's the problem we always have. So encoding, it refers to the actual assignments, the assignment methods, and the actual assignment of the symbol to the binary code. Without this definition, you cannot use it in the computer system, because computer system needs to have tables. This is the code, that's the character, and I can have that character associated with this image file, then I can show it. out onto my screen, okay? So it's an enumerating methods tool. And of course, as we mentioned, the uniqueness of not being ambiguous is one very important issue. And also, this is, again, probably not as serious now as when I started the standardization. We have ASCII. Originally, computers were designed and developed and commercialized in the US, so they had the ASCII code. This is American Standard Character, etc., okay? And then the mainland, for the simplified Chinese platforms, it's called GB 2312. Then we also know currently our system uses the so-called Unicode characters. It's a coded character set instead of a character set, okay? Now you may also see these names, UTF-8, UTF-16. These are transformation forms of Unicode. Normally when you refer to Unicode, it means a general collection of coded characters. It's fixed in byte. But if you want to have variant sequences for data exchange, in the old time, because there are old systems, so they need to be compatible with other data. So they use some other forms, which I don't think I want to cover today. But in any case, you would see. When you design a coded character set, the first thing you need to consider is how many symbols are there? I want to make sure my assignments coding space is large enough so every symbol is in that coding range, okay? So, ASCII English, 26 multiplied by 2 plus all the symbols. In fact, the original ASCII code was only 128. Because even though it's 1 byte, but the first bit is used for parity check. For Chinese, everybody already know 1 byte is not enough, because 1 byte is 2 to the power of 8, which is only 256. And so therefore, even at the beginning, for GB has to use 2 bytes. ASCII use 1 byte. And how do you recognize this? As we said, if it's variable in length, you need to know. And so the GB code encoding, even though the full 2 byte range goes to 60,000 some characters, which nobody can remember, okay? But in reality, because ASCII code cannot be clashed with the Chinese. You cannot decide whether this is Chinese or English. And so therefore, in the GB standard, all Chinese characters, their bytes, 2 bytes, the first bit is always 1. So you use that one to distinguish ASCII, which the first bit is always 0. Then that 0 and 1 tells you I should read 2 bytes or read 1 byte. Okay? Because the first bit is being fixed as a signature, and therefore you only have 2 to the power of 7 multiplied by 2 to the power of 7 for Chinese characters as a code space for Chinese. Okay? So that's these things. So another concept is, even when you say, okay, I have this code space, but I don't need to get every code point assigned. This is because Chinese character is an open set. And if you fix everything exactly 65,000 something, when you have 1 extra character, system has no way to handle it. So it's better to have a larger code space, leave some unassigned, so that you will be able to do future extension, because that's the essence of the Han characters by nature, if you code them individual character in that level. So now comes the Unicode. Actually, Unicode came later than ISO 10646. Now, ISO 10646 is a character standard. It only defines the character and its encoding. Okay, so it's a coded character set. Unicode also takes exactly the same character, but Unicode also gives you behavior in the computers. So it's more than ISO 10646. For example, when you say return, you hit the return, what happens to your system? That's defined actually by Unicode. So all the computer behavior, when you see the key of return, your cursor should go to the next line. That's an action. That's not defined by ISO 10646. It's defined by Unicode. Because Unicode is an industrial platform. And that's why now we all call it Unicode. Because everything that we work with is actually computers. So we don't just abstractly. So these two terms are used interchangeably, although the standardization part is done originally the intention of ISO 10646. Now, so now I use Unicode as the standard. Unicode, by design, it's supposed to cover everything in the world because its largest code space is 4 bytes. So 65-some thousand multiplied by 4. It's over 1 million. Nobody would be able to remember all these symbols. So it's theoretically large enough to cover everything in the world. But originally, Unicode was only 2 bytes because you collect all the computer standards in the world. It's less than, it's actually like 20,000 some characters, okay, at the time. So less than 30,000 characters. So you don't want to use 4 bytes because if you use 4 bytes, the first 2 bytes of every data is always empty. So you waste space. So therefore, you have different forms in the Unicode. Still, the idea is it should be able to cover everything. Secondly, the design principle is to say, okay, I want to make sure I leave enough space so that I can do extension in the future. Now remember, this started from industrial countries. Now, we don't know Ethiopia at the time. They don't even use computers. So there are scripts we have not computerized them, but we know one day we might. And in fact, Egyptian hieroglyphs, now they are all coded under 10646 because it's large enough to accommodate all of them. And another thing is they want to use a fixed byte encoding, as we said. Then you don't have to guess, you don't have to detect time. So this makes it uniform and efficient because you don't have to. Where if you look at ASCII, Big 5, and GB, because the traditional Chinese used in Taiwan and Hong Kong, Big 5, needs to be compatible with ASCII. So you have to use a high bit to detect. The same thing with GB. And supposedly, as we mentioned, we don't want to code the same symbol twice. Okay, so everything should be unique. Now you may find that the English letter A and the Russian Cyrillic A being separately coded. That's for a purpose. Even though they are logically all letter A, but because you give it as different code points, then you would be able to identify the language. So you can still use Russian and English in a mixed text, where using the code range, the code points, different code points, and you will be able to tell that they are different languages. Okay? So now, one more thing, and this is where we have heavy works, is the ISO 10646 is a character standard. is not a glyph standard. And I need to tell you a little bit more with demonstrating that letter A and B, everybody knows they are different symbols, okay? So they are different characters. But should we encode A and italic A separately? They look different, right? So they have different glyph shapes. The ISO 10646 is called a character standard. Character standard refers to the abstract symbols rather than the specific shape. Okay? So if you separately code these two, what will happen? That's where my question is.
Way too much.
Not only way too much, think about search. I write a letter A, use the normal form, okay? Or use the italic. When you put it in the text, you don't know which letter A I search. So I have to search the normal A and search the italic A, the bold A, and the whatever other A, right? I mean the cursive A. You don't want to do that because you want information, and that's why this character is for text processing, basically not for formatting. So formatting, we know under Word, you use that glyph font to address that issue. So this is why we want to do this, because of searching and for indexing. No matter which A it is, you know, a book can be, maybe the title can be italic, can also be just a regular letter A, okay? So, what happens with the Chinese variants? This is the English name for 一体字, 一台字, okay? Now, let's just take a look at this character. Everybody, well, it depends on where you're from. The first one, if you're from mainland, this is how we write this character. The second one, if you're from Hong Kong, that's how we write it in Hong Kong. Now, if you're from Taiwan, the third one, should they be separately coded? They shouldn't, because their abstract meaning is just a bone. There is no distinction of writing this bone is this bone, and writing the second bone is that piece of bone, right? So they are conceptually, abstractly refers to the same concept, the same logical symbol. And therefore, they should not be separately coded in principle. Okay. Should they be separately coded? Chinese really love the D's, right? So they have all combination, and this is actually 4 of them are separately coded. The reason for this is not only we should consider the components being different, their relative positions, okay? So, I mean, you can decide whether to do this or not, but so for my group, when we started this, people think that they are structurally different, and cognitively, you can tell that they are different. These things, sometimes you don't even pay attention, you don't even know, okay? So the first one. Now, what happens to this example? Chicken and chicken. Okay, so we don't know what they are. Actually, the first 2 are chicken. The second 2 are birds. Okay, different birds. So I'm putting in the pronunciation and everything over there for you to see. So obviously, now, you look at these 2, they are chicken. In fact, there is no meaning, no different meaning. You can't say this is a female chicken, this is a male chicken. If that's the case, they have to be separately coded because they look different, they have different meaning. But in these 2, I don't know any difference. So to me, should I code them? The issue is cognitively they look very different and they use different components. And it happens in the Chinese character system. This means birds, this also means birds. So as a radical, and that's how it comes. And in this case, this is actually a phonetic part of the character. So this only introduces why coding of Chinese character is more challenging. Okay? So you need to look at the meaning. That's the first thing. Okay. One example everybody knows is the Chinese character 乐, 乐. Okay, happiness and music. It's the same character. So in that case, even though they have different meaning, but they look exactly the same, we are not separately coding them. We can't say this 乐 is happy, that 乐 is, because you can't even tell, right? So that's semantically bound by context, not by the character itself. You also look at the components as the examples I showed to you, and also the relative positions, which is the structures. So these are the basis for us to analyze characters and see whether we should code them separately or not code them separately. Okay, so obviously in this case, now, this character only used in China, basically in Hong Kong and in Taiwan. So if I'm from Taiwan in their system, as a Taiwanese, I send you 骨痛, okay, so my bone is hurting. Then I send it to a doctor in China. Obviously on my system, it shows on the right-hand side. Think about it, if the document goes to China, then on my system in China, this character would look like this, which actually serves the purpose. Because as a doctor, I want to know whether you have bone problem or muscle problem or any other problem. So therefore, they should be having the same code, so there's no confusion on semantics, okay? For these two, obviously, because components and structure, don't even worry about the structure because the components are quite different, and therefore they are being separately coded. Now there is a tricky thing about the simplified Chinese and the traditional Chinese, and there's also different variants in different places. This is the same character basically, but in Japan, okay? So this is ISO's decision to have simplified and traditionally characters separately encoded. Because you can use conversion to map them, okay? There are issues, but let's just say in terms of character encoding, they are being unified. Being separate. So by presenting all of these, then we can see we need some rules for standardization. And this is my group of work. And we developed the unification rules, or the disunification rules. Let me just, the difficulty for these is because characters come from different places. Now, also, the semantics is locale dependent. And I can give you one example. If you are from Hong Kong, 农村的村, 村, 屋村, okay, uses a wood plus a 村. You can also use in the Chinese, if you read it in Chinese, in mainland, 屯 and 耳朵 is also 村. Semantically, there's no difference. But in Hong Kong, they are different. The one on the right-hand side means government-built housing places. And so this is where these characters, being the same or different, depends on a lot of different things. And that's why we have to pull all the experts from different places to provide this information. And also, you have to supply convincing evidence. And this is where the IRG meeting gets to be heated up. People are saying, okay, your evidence is not clear, and that, and things like that. Okay, so obviously this is where we do Different glyphs, if it has a different meaning, obviously you have to show evidence. Because in some other places, they may be identical. And so we do this analysis symbolically. Some of these things are, technical difficulties because of, for strokes or radicals, people have different ways of writing them and things like that. So they all need to be analyzed. Now, when 10646 was first developed, its first standard was published in 2003. And so before that, some of you may not even be in school, and that's why gradually you are using only Unicode or ISO 10646, okay? Now from that standard, there was actually an original unification principle set. This is because the first standard of ISO 10646 includes all the known technical standards in different places. No other characters. They don't add it because they want to be quick. So, and so they have first developed a unification rules. This was in the ISO 10646 Annex S. Let me just explain just a little bit. Look at these 4 characters. They probably means the same thing, right? Everyone with your guess, reasonable, intelligent guess, they are not different. Now, there's just a knife with a different way of writing it, sometimes an extra stroke, and in this case, a stroke, and also a stroke, but goes across, okay? Now, rule number 1. Even if they look very, very similar, of course not the same, okay? We have to separately code them. If in the original national standard, they were separately coded, because Unicode wants to make sure there is a so-called round-trip conversion. Your original data was in ASCII, goes to Unicode, I have to be able to go back to the ASCII code, okay? So because of this, all these characters, and I'll show you these, this is from Japan, from Korea, Taiwan uses these characters. China also uses the simplified form, but this with the right radical. But this one was used in Korea. So Korea has K and K, so they have to be separately coded. And this one, the same thing. This one, Japan uses this, so this one and that one has to be separately coded. The same thing. Japan also has this form. This was in their original Japanese national standard. For some reason, I think Japanese are fascinated by these words, so they have different forms, okay? And so we have to. But this rule no longer applies. So now, this was because of their computer standards. Without that one, they can't argue because there are many variants. And so these examples in the standard, when you see these, this actually tells you all these 4 knives should be unified. Now, not in these 4 characters, but say on the left-hand side, say it's a white with a knife. All different forms, they should be unified. So this is, secondly, if there are 2 characters, very, very similar in shape, different if they are the same, so we don't have any argument. They look different. As long as they are different in terms of meaning. So the shape difference is actually quite minor, but we have to separately code them because they have different meaning. We say different meaning, but in ISO 10646, we call it non-cognate. They come from different origins. Okay? just an English term. This is related to the happiness character, actually. Now, to analyze character, we have a so-called 2-level classification. use the abstract shape, never mind, so we don't need to worry about this. Let me just give you an example. Now, you look at these two characters, should they be separately coded or they should be should be considered identical? In fact, if you are from England, I think you use the one on the left, right?
Right.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
Right.
on the right? No. In Hong Kong, I think you use this 几, right? So,
No, I use
No.
the one on
oh,
the
the other way around. Okay, the other way around. So either way, now I'm confused. Because cognitively, it doesn't make any difference, okay? So what we do is we break the character into their radical components first. So this radical is the tiger thing. And then the bottom, you can actually, the tiger thing, you can also split it in here. Either way, okay, it doesn't matter. It's because they're identical. So you split into two, this is a 7 and the G, right? Now, look at this, the second one over here. So compare these two. Now we can see that they are different only in here. But at which level? This is from the original decomposition 1 level, already decomposition to the 3rd level, okay? So the further you go down, the more insignificant the difference becomes. In fact, you think of some of the people write, let me see, do I have a pen? I can write, okay. No, over there on the board. Oh, okay. 吉祥的吉 some people write it as 是, some people write it as 土, depending on where you are from. But they are all the same, right? Because they are at the 2nd level. Yeah. Okay. So there are many characters. So these characters, when we say they are non-cognate, we are talking about their being characters. If they are being components in a character, they may become insignificant. All right? So in that case, they may be unified as one character. And this is the same thing, character. 己 and as a single character, everybody knows they are different. But when they are serving as component at a lower level, then they become insignificant. Okay? So let me show it to you, a code chart. This is the original 10646. Now it actually has more columns. So let me just show it to you what this code chart means. This is the Unicode number. Okay, and in this case, these are all 2-byte code. So these are hexadecimal notations, okay, 2-byte code. And if you see this one, this is like a yin, but I don't know what it is. It's not a fire. But anyway, look at this one. These two are under the same code, but they do look different. Because this is a xi, this goes straight, right? So I can pick you some other examples in here. This tells you, this is actually Taiwan and Japan. The column okay shows. Here, this is in mainland and also in Taiwan. In Taiwan, all this body part as a meat is always point and tip. So they are different, but they are being coded under the same thing. But why do I have to show these? If I'm a font vendor, I'm making font for Taiwan, then I should make sure I follow the code chart to make it look like this. And that's what the code chart means. Now there are even minor things. 走之 or 苍庭, okay? These two characters, this is the traditional way of writing. This is the simplified way of writing it. And so you put these characters which look different. You can also see this one. Goes this way, that goes that way, but they are being coded. once you see these things in here, what we call it is these two forms are unifiable. Okay, and so in addition to the Annex S, which was a minor collection, now IRG works, collects these examples and putting them into a working document, and it gets to be updated almost every meeting. All right. So a lot of these, because the first standard actually covers all the mainland, Taiwan, Japan, Japan's computer standard, Korean actually had a Chinese character, Han character standard, so they were included. Eventually, we also had the V, and you see the table has a V column. The Vietnamese in the old time, ancient time uses the Han characters. They no longer support it as a national standard, but there are people trying to revitalize their historic scripts, documents, and so they need to standardize because the Vietnamese characters, even if they look the same, but they may have different meanings. Some of them are purely phonetic, translating the Vietnamese forms. Okay. And these are, I'm just giving you some examples of these. You see all these new collections, actually, there are even more. I'm just showing some of the Koreans for their old ancient documents, especially if you watch all the Korean movies, the historical movies, everything is in Chinese, because their Hangul was only developed relatively recently. Now, how many characters are there, the Han CDK characters? Any guess?
30,000?
Okay. Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Now, your 30,000 is not too far from the truth. The first one developed under all standards, computer standard, is in the so-called the BMP, the basic multi-lingual plane. That has 20,000 characters. Then they had extension A very quickly, so that's a little bit less than 30,000, but that's it. Then eventually, extension B, C, etc. I give you every information in here with their code range, and so this is the code space, total number of spaces or code points, and how many of them are being used. And you can see that this area is not completely filled, okay? But many of the previous areas are completely filled. Even in BMP, originally when it was coded, there are some leftover space. Now it's all completely filled. So all of these, one strange thing, you may see all these characters is by letter, this is I, but this character starts from 2EBF0. All these, it starts from 3. Okay, in Unicode or ISO 10646, this is 2-byte range. This is already beyond 2-byte range. So now all the computer system actually in processing for all of this, they are already using 4 bytes. You are not aware, we call it a processing code. It's all 4 bytes, not 2 bytes anymore. In the newer version of Windows, Apple's machines, because they have to accommodate, starting from extension B. You see, this is already beyond 2 byte, okay? The last one, in the BMP, it should be F. Then after that, then you get an extra. So let me see, I can point to this, right? So this is all 2 byte. But of course, when you have processing code, just add 2 more extra 0 bytes, okay? So here is, we call it a plain tool. This is all in plain tool, extension B, C, D, E, and into E, and to F. Starting from G, it's already plain number 3. So it's increasing. Now, so plain 2 is basically completely full. Maybe just one or just a few space. Then the current version that I'm working for as an extension, the next extension over here has not the extension G, sorry, J, sorry. But extension G actually starts from over here. So this one, let me see. Okay, I'm okay. Extension J is coming with over 4,000. So Unicode is going to be over 100,000 very soon. We are submitting the character in June, so maybe next year it will be over 100,000 characters. Looking at this, it's nothing to be proud of from my perspective, because the issue to us now is how do we use these 100,000 characters, and in reality we only use a few thousands, okay, for every individual. Of course, this is supported in the computer platforms for different applications, for different people, and therefore they need to have a large collection. But we're facing a lot of problems. Let me see, my time is okay, right?
Yeah.
So,
15 minutes.
all right. So, this just give you some example of what are the other collections people are working for and working on trying to add it in. These 四库全书 is the Chinese collection. There are also from Japan. This is actually a collection from the Buddhist script, because Buddhism has been in Asia for a long time, so they have different versions and the characters are being written differently when it goes to different versions. Okay, so no good, or very good if you are working on ancient scripts, okay? So, one of the fact is, no matter what characters we add into it, they are going to be very rarely used. But of course, can be useful for people who wants to do research, and also revitalizing some of the ancient scripts and digitization of information. So you would have it. Now, of course, you say, well, let's just don't standardize it. We scan in the book. That's okay, but you can't search. You can only look at it, right? So this is why encoding them make it much easier to search for it and to create more information related to that. When you have so many characters, very hard to find them. If you have an input method that has to cover over 100,000, you remember all these different combinations. Or when you use the combinations, you come up with multiple choices, and it takes time to pick the right one, which is time consuming, so it becomes less efficient. So these are the issues. And also, sometimes you may have a chicken which people regularly use, and there may be a chicken which people may not even recognize that they are different. So you might be using the wrong one if it's separately coded, and then nobody can search for it. So many of the characters, to us, in standardization, we have a hard way of looking at these and distinguish them and consider them different. So cognitively, when you are looking at character every day, you get confused and your mind stops working, okay? So also, if you want to support them, economically, if you create 100,000, your font file has to accommodate for 100,000 characters. It's going to be huge, and it has a much more demand to the resources in your system, right? So anyway, So we need some technical solutions in the standardization process, also trying to help people to find them. Okay. And in fact, we also need better encoding methods. Now think about Chinese. Why is it so difficult? English doesn't seem to have any problem anymore, right? Chinese characters is actually two-dimensional encoding. Single character has components with different places. And of course, we use combination of characters to represent some unique meanings too. But the characters themselves are being two-dimensional. So if you do an analogy with the English, can we code the components and use a sequence to represent characters? Yes, you can. Now, we do that. 弓长张,立早张, right? We do that kind of a description for characters. Those are actually a sequence to represent characters. But the problem is Chinese characters are very complex. Some of them have many components. I will show it to you later for some of the examples. And so, we also want to have maybe some separate sets to represent them. So one of the things to get the structure in place is ISO 10646 developed some CJK structural symbols. And if you look at the structural symbols, now you can immediately say this is a left to right structure, up, top, and bottom. And because Chinese also have three, and this is like sorry, this one goes this way, goes bottom like tong, all right? And this goes to the right-hand side, etc., okay? So use this one is much easier to decompose the components and for people to search. This was developed actually help the standardization to find out which characters are already coded. So all the new character submissions, they have to describe these characters using these structural symbols, which we call it IDS symbols. So if you have this one, this is, use this one, everybody knows which character it is, okay? The same thing, you use a separate sequence, and they are unique, okay? So, let me skip these things. There are sort of a sequence of representation. And then you can see that this character, 立早张, that's a common way of saying it. But in terms of components, it actually has different sequences. Now, one of the things IDS as a technology, this, as I mentioned already, uses this, okay? One of the things that this technology doesn't define is when you use this structure, it doesn't mean there's no rendering implication. It only says this is on top of that. So you cannot render it based on this, not sufficient information. The same thing, if you put this, you split it in this way, and it doesn't mean the character look like that, okay? So it's just a relative position. Now the reason this one, now remember we also have a 3 structure to split. Computer system will be able to process these. Now remember, because this character is also having a sequence, and so therefore you would be able to do it automatically. So we don't really care how you split. We would be able to find all, as long as their relative positions are there, they should be okay. So this is one technology to help us for new submissions and checking them with the existing characters. Okay? Now, this is an example. I want to show it to you. It's a very complex sequence. Okay, so Changteng is on the left-hand side and the bottom. Then the top part has a 3. The 3 part, the first one is Baogar. And the second part is Wang Er in the middle. And so that's the character, okay? All right. Now, why do I want to show it to you? Look at this sequence. The only difference is Er and this So, of course, this character looks like that. Okay? The only difference is in the middle. So if I have the first one coded, second one not coded, then it's much easier for me to see whether there's something similar to that character. Because the only difference in computer processing, looking at these two, is this element. So we can bring it in to say, well, these two sequences are too similar, so let's see whether they are related or not. Okay, so that's one technology we developed. So let me skip all these other things. Now another thing, as I mentioned, is let's code all these components and see if we can use the sequence like that, okay? We're not done that yet because people are too busy coding characters, okay? So we're all done. Now, another thing which is done now, let me see, only, okay, still 10 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Okay, is that for variants, now, characters with very minor differences, because of the unification rules, in one place, the character can only take one form, okay? So you cannot have another form in your own column. So what happens is, if I want to support both of them, there is a new technology called the ideograph variation sequence. What happens is, it uses a combining sequence, which we actually use in computer science. I think most of you still would be able to know this, right? If I want to type a smiley, and I don't know what it is, use colon plus a right bracket. Your system actually, you type the two characters, come up with one symbol. The same thing with IVS. IVS has a special code range under this one. So if you have a character and you want to indicate it's a variant, there is a base character which has to be coded. And then you followed by a variation sequence. This is a designated area. It's not used as a character. It's acts as a variant symbol. Then you will be able to link two different form of a character, which you, if you need in one place to use both of them. I don't know whether you know this character. It's a Japanese character. Ashi, it's actually one of the family names in Japan. But they do take two forms in terms of 走之. So they need to code both. Under the current IRG unification, they cannot code both. So with the new technology, what they do is, this is a coded character which has a code. So for this one, instead of giving it one separate code, we give it the base character code followed by the designated variant sign. Just like that, okay? Then when you see this sequence, a character followed by a variant, then I go to the table, find it, and display a separate font. What is the good part about this method? In case I see the sequence, I cannot find the font because it's new. Because you gave me extra information. At least I don't have to give you a block. I can give you this character. So for searching, for finding the character as a replacement, this information gives you some alternatives rather than nothing. Secondly, for searching, since these two characters are related, so searching only uses this code. So if you gave me a character sequence like this, I only use this one to search. So they are always together.
So search and display are different.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so that's the new method for dealing with variants of related one. The only issue is you have to know this character is related to that. If I look at a character that's very similar to another character, but they are not related, I can't use this technology. And there's also cases, especially in different places, maybe the alternative shape is linked to two different meanings. That's possible. We have run into these cases. So one of the solutions is to pick the popular one. Only associate with the popular one, okay? And you use database to have extra meanings. So this is just an example. In Japan, there are different, let's just say it's bien, okay, I don't know. I think it is, but all these different form, then you can, if you want to code them all in Japan for research purpose. So using this method, you don't need to get them all separately coded. You can give these extra ones the selector, different selector numbers. And so they are linked together for searching and display, and so it's much easier. Okay, so basically I'm done. Now, I mentioned about the limitation. There are other things that's in the future, and as I mentioned about coding the components. That's not yet done. But components are, because they are classification, I think in libraries too for searching. And there are also more scripts coming. And for all these scripts, some of them are maybe handwritten. And so if it's a handwritten, standards deals with printed forms. So they are all in the formal writing. If your old document, for example, in Korea, the Korean historic scripts were all handwritten. In the court, they try to be as formal as they are, but still sometimes it can be rough, all right? So how to deal with these things? They are still in the process of being developed. And one other development which happened recently is, you look at these two characters. Under the old system, they are coded separately because this is a left-right structure. This is a top-bottom structure. We had difficulty recognizing these things because they basically look very similar and people get confused. Now, it's a new rule that for these things, if they are variants, we already know their meaning are the same, but they have different writing. This is because ancient scripts, people copy, and they may copy it wrong, so they developed a different form. And we are breaking the structural difference rule now, not to allow these to be separately coded. They can be using IVS to be coded. But of course, this is the radical of these two characters are different, and we're allowing alternative radicals, and so therefore they would be able to find these and for description. Okay. So I am basically done. For standardization, we need the expertise from both language people and IT people. And you see the technology are development under the IT. The characters, whether they are different or where is the ancient scripts and things like that, we can't work on these things. So we have to work hand in hand. And also for IRG, even though theoretically every character should be different, but we do have duplicates because in the old time, we only use eyes to look at the characters. We use constant radicals, try to use them so that to avoid, to reduce possible mistakes, but mistakes are in the coding pages, okay? Now we have an online system developed by UST graduates. Many of our people are volunteers, and they use their spare time. So we do have an online system. And if you are young, energetic, and you want to contribute anytime, okay. Okay. So I have some references for the older when it started, and also there are some websites where if you want to find information, you can try to find. The first one. This IRG website is maintained in COHK. I actively maintain this. It has all the current documents. We have every document. It's an open process. Nothing is secret, okay? So this is our upper level approval committee for the standardization part and all these other things. Now, this is, when I was a professor at PolyU, I used the ITF fund to develop a number of systems. Actually, one of them is a Cantonese characters to know their phonetics, etc. Okay, so that's basically it. Okay. for my
Well,
presentation.
thank you very, very much. That was really
Inspiring and exciting and interesting. Yes. So now we have a little bit of time for questions, and so just raise your hand and I'll pass you the microphone.
I speak Cantonese, Mandarin, and English. Okay.
Okay, ask her.
Thank you for this very interesting talk. I think now I would see Chinese characters from a very different angle. Yeah, those little changes. I'm curious to know that, because you mentioned that you are still working on the extensions of characters. I'm just curious to know who create those new characters and how do you find them?
Okay, we do not create. They have to come from some sources. For example, people when submit characters, they have to say this character is used where, in which book, in which ancient book, or so we don't create characters. Submissions come from mainland China, Hong Kong, HKSCS characters are also included now. For example, 深水埗嘅寶字 is something that's modern, never been in any dictionary. They are included now. And Macau character 騰仔, it's also nothing anywhere, now it's already included. So they have to be either submitted by, well, 騰仔is actually submitted by Hong Kong, because Hong Kong HKSCS has that character, so that's being included now. So every character has to have a reasonable source that we verify as this character being used. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, okay.
So like when you submit a character set like to like maybe Unicode, like
Yes.
do you have to include a font for it?
For the documents, you only need to give images. For submission purpose, for acceptance. Once it's accepted, you have to have the true type font so that they can include it in the standard. So at certain point after the submission, after the discussion, you need to provide true type font. Originally when we started, we actually used a bitmap, and eventually becomes true type. But true type also, in the review process, we use true type and extract it as an image for review because nobody has the same platform. They are not standardized. So they are all in, when they submit it in their own POA, private use area. But now, almost everybody who submits it already have the true type font, but it's not required for submission. So say if you have an ancient book, you say, well, this character, I can't find it, and I think it's a major reference, somehow it's missed by the standard, and it should be, you need to show the image of that character, explaining the character. And in most cases, from one place, you also need to give the pronunciation. But in ancient scripts, as long as you provide enough context so people can identify the meaning, pronunciation is not a must. Because CJK, the same character, they all pronounce differently. But if you have the pronunciation, it's an indication of it being actively used. So there is a IRG for submission. There is a document called IRG Principles and Procedures. That document is available on the top in the website. You go down there, and that document is being updated too.
And just for those who, can you tell us IRG stands for?
Oh, the IRG doesn't change, but the actual English character gets to be changed. The IRG originally is called the Ideograph Repertoire Group. Under ISO 10646 structure, every committee there is a certain setup, certain standard, and then underneath the working part of it is called a working group, so WG. IRG is the only one that actually goes under a WG in ISO 10646 standard, because you need to pull experts from all different places, and sometimes they only come in because they submit characters for certain applications. But under ISO, every expert under the WG level needs to be a registered expert. Now, some of our volunteers are just web people who are interested in Chinese characters, and they can supply valuable information. So ISO made an exception to form this group. But now, they changed the R from repertoire collection. Rapporteur is actually the person who starts the group, becomes a research group. They changed it to R. For some technology, for some logistics reason. Because if it's a research group, then you can pull everybody in. Okay, so.
Okay. Other questions? We still have some time. Okay, well, may I ask a question? One of my questions is that you mentioned that sometimes things get heated, and so you're in the IRG,
Yes.
you're the leading it, and you meet 4 times a year? Or
We
twice a year?
meet 2 times a year.
Okay, and so can you give us an idea of what it's like? Is it like 12, 15 people in a room, or how do you go? How does it go?
Okay. Now, the committee, the IRG group works like this. Okay, I'm chairing the meeting. Every meeting we have agenda items from submitted documents, and we make plans for the next version. All these so-called next version are worked offline, and you assign review tasks to different groups. Every time we'll work on like 4,000 some characters. So review by one person for 4,000, they have other jobs, so they can't do it. So we split it. So all of these are done during the meeting for planning purpose, for leaving homeworks to do. So we have schedules. If you go to the IRG website, under each meeting, there is a so-called recommendations document that tells you the time schedule and what to do, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is done during the meeting. Then many of the people give feedbacks offline. Then during the meeting, you discuss. Because I think, okay, I say this character is already coded, and it has to be confirmed by everyone. Okay, yeah, it's actually. But sometimes when you say they are identical, then people realize, oh, there's a minor difference. Or there's a structural difference, we didn't see it. So this is discussed during the meeting. So there's a table, let's just go one time at a time. It's a very mechanical thing, sort of.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a quick one.
Okay.
In the different structure you displayed, I don't see the one for the triangle kind, like the 板子,
板子, no.
So which structure
Okay,
does that fall into?
that's a very good question. 本, you use top and bottom.
Right.
The bottom you split into left to right, then you get the sequence.
So
You can. You can. Because it basically, there is one symbol which is actually now still ambiguous. Let's take a look at this character. How do you split it? Obviously, you can treat it as a non-divisible unit, but you do have characters which have overlay. So we do have a symbol called this one. Sorry. This is a symbol in one of the 12. It's called an overlay. The overlay symbol is ambiguous, because you only know that you can split it into da and the overlay plus 1, 2, 3. And if you want, you can get left to right, top and bottom as a sequence. So this is actually okay. But the thing is, this overlay, if you look at this one, it can be You can't tell. So it's not precise in this case. There are characters like that. So
承认的成成
exactly. Yeah, but so if you use this symbol, people will pay attention. Try to see it, because there are different ways of breaking it. Overlay is the most difficult part. So the symbol itself only is an indication of overlay. How is it overlaid? We don't know. So you have to look at the character to see it. Okay? Very good question.
Great, all right, well, thank you. So we have a couple of minutes left, so one last chance for questions, otherwise we're going to end it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll ask her one more, okay.
Can I just share something just because I recognize this, I need a marker. And I noticed on Wikipedia, this
Yeah.
character has been in the dictionary, I mean, probably some of you already.
Oh, you mean the three dragons?
Yeah.
Oh, this one, yeah. This there's just many dragons and many turtles in the standard. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one character. Sorry.
This has no problem for description.
So this is up, down,
Yeah.
left, right, left,
So
right.
let me write it the sequence.
Sorry.
Top and bottom, first one, right? And top is this dragon over here, and bottom is a left to right, then dragon again. That's how you describe the character, if you want to code it. And I think this character is actually being coded. It's already coded.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
It's so
So to
fast.
describe it, see, the thing is, the only requirement for this sequence is this is a coded character. All of these has to be coded, otherwise you cannot write the sequence. But the character itself, you don't have to break it, because you put it in here, this character is already being broken. So if I want to search the radical, this actually has a 3. You can always search it using the sequence. Okay, so all of this 3 structure, people mostly use this sequence to break them. Okay, yeah.
Okay, well, so that was an exciting challenge. It looks like it could be like a party game or something.
Yeah, exactly. Then you can play. We do, when we have submissions, when we first had the submission, people write these things with all sort of mistakes. Because the issue is not really the problem with the symbol itself, but some of the radicals they don't have. So over here, if this is not coded, then you can't do it. Then you have to break it, or break it into strokes. So for example, I mean, it's not a very good example. Just say that if I have this structure, suppose this is not coded, okay? This is coded, so we don't have a problem. But just say this is not coded, then I can't put it in. So if I have a character like this, and suppose this, I think we had this example, the 没 thing, right? 没有的没, you use that example. This one is not a character, so it's not, this component is not coded. So if I want to describe this character, supposedly this is a left to right, top to bottom, right? Now, if this one is already coded, then you don't have a problem, left to right. But if this 3, this is not coded, this is coded, I'm supposed to have left to right, but the right part is a top bottom, but then I'm in trouble. I don't know how to do this. So what do I need to do? The top itself has to be broken again into 1 and 2, right? So people have different ways, and sometimes they have to create. Even if the top and the left and right, none of them is being coded, then what do I do? So that's where for some of the characters, you do run into trouble.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was really stimulating, really fun. So everybody, please, let's give our thanks to Dr. Wood and then the person our library director, Gabi, will give a...
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
One, two. One more.
Okay,
All right.
thank you so much.
Okay, and then just before we go, I'd like everybody to please give us your feedback here. Okay, so thank you very much, and after you give your feedback, you're welcome to go. Bye-bye.
And if you have any questions.